Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Goodhew. I'm a program manager based out of Redmond, Washington, on the Windows and Devices group. And I'm here to talk to you about building PC apps with the Universal Windows Platform. Now, it's great to be here and be able to talk to you about this. I grew up just a little bit south of Wollongong, but I've lived in the US now for 20-odd years, which is why I no longer understand the difference between Z and Z. But I got a chance to come back, visit my family. I took a bunch of the other presenters that you saw today down to the Robertson pie shop where we had a pie, and they've bought in now into the whole argument as to which pie shop in Australia serves the best pies, and I started my little piece on support of the Illawarra. Anyway, I'm here to talk to you about building Universal Windows apps and building specifically PC apps. This morning you saw this slide, and if you've been to some of our other presentations, you've probably seen this slide 100 times. The way to think about the Universal Windows Platform is to really think about it as being two sides of the one coin. We have a universal application, and a universal application supported by an operating system that has the same common core, one core that we call it, that runs whether it's an IoT device, like a Raspberry Pi or an Intel Joule, all the way through mobile, PC, through to Surface Hub, and even innovative new devices like the HoloLens. And to support those applications that are on all of those platforms, we needed to give you one Windows platform from a developer perspective to write apps to. And that platform had to give you an adaptive user interface. You need to be able to build applications that will work on all these different form factors. You have a way of presenting the UI that is appropriate for an IoT device, that is appropriate for a desktop PC, that is appropriate for a Surface Hub. We wanted to enable you to engage your customers and your users in natural user interface and make it easy for them to get access to your application. So we support speech, inking, touch, all natively as part of the API. We wanted to make it easy for you to go and build against this platform. So one SDK, one set of tooling in Visual Studio. Those of you that have been building Windows apps for a long time know that that's a departure. We don't have an SDK now for embedded, and an SDK for desktop, and an SDK for server. You go get the one Windows SDK, you use Visual Studio 2017, and you can build apps for all of these devices. We wanted to give you one place to publish your application and simplify acquisition. And for your users, we're going to be investing an incredible amount in changing the way people acquire Windows applications. And we want to give those users a trusted, safe, secure place to go and get Windows applications now, and that will be the Windows Store. That store also provides us with the ability to give you as the developers deeper, richer, and more actionable telemetry about your application. Finally, these apps don't exist as islands by themselves. We wanted to give you support for services like storage with OneDrive, or application sharing, such as Project Rome, across the different devices, or gesture recognition using Project Moria, though I think it's now called Project Prague. But we wanted to give you these types of services that you could call that would go and provide that information back to your application in a way that's just like a component. So thinking about this Universal Windows Platform gives you these two sides of the coin. Now, a lot of the time when we talk about this and people show you this slide deck, they're talking about writing one app that runs across all these devices. I really just want to focus today on building PC applications. If you walk out of this talk with one thing to remember, that's that the Universal Windows Platform is the future platform, or the platform where we'll be investing for all Windows application development. We're looking at expanding the API surface. One of the things that we know, and this is what you get when you start a new platform, you have to catch up to where your existing platforms are. The Win32 API is a rich, powerful API. The .NET framework has been around for years and is a rich, powerful framework. With UWP, we need to catch up to that, and we are busy expanding that surface. Just in the Creators Update, we added 1,000 new features into UWP to give you the ability to do things that you could do on those other platforms. We also wanted to be more open with how we approach this. So inside, on our website, we have a roadmap. This is a roadmap that is out there that's showing you where we're investing, what we're going to build. You know, even though we're a big company, we don't have unlimited resources. And so we really want to partner with you as a community to help us identify where we should invest that resource and build the Windows platform that you're after. This is a way that you can go up there and help guide that information. We wanted to update installing. If you previously with installers, and you saw a little bit in Dale's talk, you would run a install shield or Visual Studio in setup, and it would go and do stuff. We wanted to simplify that. Let's have an AppX, a simple file format that contains everything you need to know about your app, and then it can install. So that gives us the ability to support things like streaming. I can install an app and stream features to it while the application is being installed. I can do difference installing. So if I have a big app and I've just got a little addition, I don't have to reinstall everything again. I can just install the difference. We wanted to provide this better telemetry so that you could understand what the users are doing. And so our Dev Center has a deeper, richer understanding of what problems are occurring, where people are acquiring your apps, and so on. We've been partnering with the community, not just in the roadmap, but also in functional areas. You may have seen, if you've been looking at UWP development, that we released the UWP Community Toolkit. This is a toolkit we've been partnering with about 80 or 90 other Windows developers in the community to go and create a set of controls, notifications, and services that you can use and add to your applications to build great Windows apps. And finally, we've been working with third parties to make Windows a better environment, or Universal Windows Platform, a better environment to build line of business apps. Earlier this year, you would have seen us announce our partnership with Telerik and making the Telerik UI controls for Universal Windows Platform available free. They're up on GitHub, and you can go and get those controls and use them in your line of business apps. Now, with everything we've had to talk about today, with all of these sessions in this 25-minute format, I don't have enough time to give you a deep demo on each of these points. What I'd like to do is just give you a look at 4 sort of areas that cover this, that hopefully will help you see some of the value that we're doing with the Universal Windows Platform for building PC apps. So enough with the slides, let's move over to our demo machine. So here's my demo machine. Let me run the application that I have running here. And okay. Now, this is the point where it was working perfectly this morning. I spent 17 odd years working on Visual Studio, so I'm completely confident to say it's not my fault. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so somebody has actually typed in here. This is part of the problem of setting up all new machines. Your other demoers are coming up here and adding things to the stuff. But let me show you a little bit of demo magic. And so this is the secret command to make everything work correctly. Okay. Now, don't share that with anyone, right? That's just between us. Of course, if this doesn't work, I'll look like a complete wally, really, won't I? And okay, here we go. This is the quiet bit where we have the uncomfortable silence while the build happens to see whether or not everything actually worked correctly. And the deploy started. The deploy succeeded. Yes! And you thought I got hired just for my good looks, didn't you? This is a sort of classic customer management application. It's that line of business app. We've probably all built one or worked on one. It's for a company called Northwest Sprinklers. They sell irrigation products. But because it's a UWP app, I can do things like work with the app using these natural user inputs. So what I have here is a pen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, just draw a line on an order item. Now, this data grid that you see here is a data grid. It's a line of business control. It's part of the UWP controls for the UI controls for UWP by Telerik that we partnered to open source. But it works the way natural people would work. We know 72% of people use pens day to day. Imagine I'm holding my clipboard today. I'm just writing things off as I use them. I'm going to be able to do that tomorrow. So I can select on there. I can get rid of my pen, and I can just scroll up and down. And again, I'm just using touch. So that's the type of thing that you can do with a data grid control. You can build these line of business apps. What I want to do is I want to extend this and put in a loyalty item. So let's just shut the app down and go and take a look at the loyalty page. And so here you can see I have this loyalty page, and it tells me this is where I need to stick some stuff. Now, I'm a program manager, not a developer, so what that means is I have a tenuous grasp of the C# language, and XAML is a complete mystery to me. So using this UWP toolkit, I can go through and look at all these different controls. Now, this app here is the UWP Community Toolkit sample application. You can go to the store, you can get this, and we have all of these controls, we have notifications, we have helper functions, and this is being built day in, day out. People are adding to this. And the cool thing about this is, you don't need to go and read about a control and read a bunch of documentation. I can come in and say, okay, well, I want a master detail view. And here I see what a master detail view would look like. I can click on this guy here, I can see how it would work. And then more importantly, over the side here, I have the XAML code. So I can come in here and I can just grab that XAML code, and I can go back to Visual Studio, and I can paste that in. Now, it won't work quite out of the box because we need to make a little bit of changes here. So let's go in and change the binding on this to orders. I don't want the data model to be that. We'll just have a data template. And, the data template's going to be pretty simple. So we'll just change this to default binding. So there we go. So now we've done that. So now we'll get our list of customers on the left. Let's use another control to represent the loyalty. And the control I'd like to use, if we come back here, is a radial progress bar. This is pretty straightforward. It's exactly what you think it is. It's a little radial bar that, as you change the progress value, it changes. Now, again, because this is a sample app, I can make this look the way I want it. So let's make it a bit thicker. I want to make it a bit bigger. Let's say 154. Let's drag this up here to, say 154 as well. What do you think? That looks pretty good. All right. So now I've created all the control I need. So I just go in and copy that. I come back over here, and this piece in here for the relative panel, I'm just going to delete that, drop the control in here. Now, cut and paste, we still didn't fix that quite in Visual Studio, so let's just make that look a bit prettier. We'll change relative panel to a grid because otherwise it doesn't look very good. And now I want to change that to binding, to loyalty. Okay, now we have our radial progress bar, but let's actually grab a text box in there as well, and we'll bind that to loyalty. And then I'm going to use a style. It's a static resource, and that's loyalty style. Now, I defined this already up the top, so we don't need to define that. So there we go. So now we're all done. and we click on Run. And now, drum roll please, loyalty. There we go. Oh, isn't that nice? Yes, you can clap. I can wander down through here, clearly this is somebody that's been to the Robertson Pie store. Let's keep going. 17, yeah, this is a guy that believes Goldman pies are better. Yeah, exactly. All right, so what we've seen there is using the UWP Community Toolkit and how easy it is to go and add these type of controls to your application by simply cutting and pasting the XAML and using the NuGet packages that we've created. Now, the next thing I want to show you is taking some of that natural user input and doing some stuff with it. So what I have, the next thing I wanted to show you was, let me change machines. Okay, so 4, 3. Next thing I want to show you was some of the install technologies. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is streaming install. Now, the concept behind a streaming install is that I can put pieces down on the machine and then I can start using the application before it's completely installed. So let me double-click on this WinForms app that I have here, and if we drag this down here, you'll see that I'm going to click Install, and as it starts installing, I can click on Launch, and I can start looking at the different cities, and eventually this thing will say it's finished. There you go. So if I come back and click on London, we'll see that we get the content back again. This is very similar to what you see in a lot of modern games today, where they'll install some small subset of the game that enables people to start using the game immediately. You can now do this with your applications. And this is a WinForms app. You can go and do this with all types of UWP applications on your machine. What we can also do, and let me just zoom in a little bit here. What you'll see here is 2 bundled apps, and you can see that they're about half a gig in size, and they're only different by about 100K. If I installed these apps normally, I'd install the first one, it would take as long, and then if I install the second one, traditionally we would override everything and we'd do checks. With the new Apex install technology that we have inside the Universal Windows platform, I can actually look and see the difference and just install the difference of this. So what does that mean? Well, let me show you what this looks like when it's actually running. So here is the first app, and this takes about 15 seconds to install. It's copying all those assets across. And then once it's finished installing, I can launch it. And this is a video that our team did about the developer's guide to the Galaxy. Now, as you already saw from Jaime running around wearing the clown outfit, my team has a strange, possibly disturbing attraction to wearing props. So we did this video, but one of the guys said, well, let's make it a better looking app. And so what we have is we have version 2, where we have a little better of a UI. So if I click on install, bam, done. We just installed it. You can clap. That's like, this is damn impressive, really. Think about it. You've laid down a big app, you do an update. Your users don't have to suck down, well, they don't have to install the entire update. They just get the differences. And it really is. This is a working demo. Let me show you. Here's version 2 of the app. And you can see that it has, a slightly better UI. I can jump. This is Chris that did the PWA talk.
How have you been following it?
This is Nicola, who has a very disturbing bed partner in Jeff. Anyway, let's stop that, because there are just some things you can't unsee. And what I showed there was the difference install. So we've seen 2 of the different install technologies there. So let's jump back to the UWP machine, and we'll take a look at the next thing, which is I wanted to show, which was the inking. Now, to do the inking analysis, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the application. Now, I need 2 volunteers. 2 volunteers, hands up. All right, yep, come on up here to the stage. There is no prize involved in this, just to be clear. All right, we can, yeah. All right, so come join me over here. We're going to take a photo. This is sort of a selfie type thing. All right, so getting close. Let's all, really getting close. Make it uncomfortable. All right. No, hand off my ass. All right. There we go. Now, you got this thing, and I take an awesome photo. So what I want to do is I want to start, let me select red here, because this is the clown stuff, so let's put a nose on. Oh, let's put a nose on. Put a nose on here. Okay. Yeah, let's get rid of this. That's better. Okay. So what I've just shown you is ink analysis and the ability to take the different types of strokes, put them together and recognize shapes. So let's take a look at the code. Thank you very much for the demo. Appreciate it. So let's flip back over here and we'll see the inking. Now, this inking part, you saw here that what I have is an image. I have an ink canvas. And that's the line that I needed to add inking support to this app, was just ink canvas. Once I added that to the XAML, now my app supports inking. To get that little toolbar where I clicked on the drop down and selected the pen color and some other stuff, what I would do is add ink toolbar. 2 lines of XAML code give me all that inking power. To go and get and understand the types of shapes, all I used was the ink analysis service. That ink analysis service enables me to get the different types of shapes, or get the different strokes, bring them together, and then say, is this a circle? Is this a square? Is this an ellipse? And then act on it. And you can see the code here, how easy it is to add inking and the support for this rich inking experience to your applications. Now, we're going to extend this list as we go on and add more shapes day to day. So that was inking. The last thing I want to show you before we go back to the slides is, let me run the app again. Last thing I want to show you was connected animation, and this is a new feature that we've added in the Creators Update. When I click on the instrument down here, it just suddenly jumps to this page. Now, it's doing a proper navigation as it moves back and forwards. If we have a look at that again, we come back here, I click on that, we jump, and it's very abrupt. You want this better experience in trying to get access to these items, and this is part of what we talk about when we talk about our Fluent design surface. And here you see a motion and a smoother access. That's done through connected animation. Let's take a look at the code that does that. And over here, you can see that the code that actually does that is this part here. We prepare the animation service, we tell it where we're going and where we're coming from, and then we do a navigate, just like we would if we were building a standard application. And then on the page, the navigation page that we are going to, we simply instantiate the connected service again, the connected animation service, and we say, hey, did I come from somewhere? If I did, now please animate this. I didn't have to create any of those paths myself. I didn't have to do any of that work. This is all the code. That 6 lines of code was all I needed to do to get that fluid design experience. So it's a really easy way for you to start getting this great, rich experience in your applications. So let's take a quick look now, if we jump back to slides, at Fluent and the Fluent design surface, design system. In the keynote this morning, we talked about these 5 areas of light, depth, motion, and material, and scale. Light is a way that you can take the user focus and present them where in the application they should be doing their work, they should be interacting with it. Depth is a way that you can keep information that the users care about or that they're working with central and remove the clutter and make your application feel easier to use. Motion is like being the director of a movie. You can take the customer and take your user through the application and use motion to move them to where you want to go or to get the emotional attachment reaction that you're after. The material is where you provide this real tangible feel to your app. What we've found is that by creating this translucency and the ability to have this experience, you can go and get this really emotional access or attachment to the application amongst your users. Scale is about bringing your applications through the various dimensions, whether it's just 2D or 3D types of apps in an immersed environment or on a single flat panel display. You have the ability to take your app and scale it across all of those items. Those 5 things together bring the fluent design system that lets you build applications across all the different types of devices, whether they're IoT devices through special apps like HoloLens. Last thing that I'd like to talk about is the Windows Store. The Windows Store is a key step forward, as I talked about us giving a way for you to create and reach Windows customers and providing them with a trusted and secure approach to acquiring applications. Inside the Windows Store, you have discovery reach. We have a big, broad market that you can get to, 200 or 500 million active devices, 200 plus markets. We have a commerce platform that handles subscription payments for you. And we have a developer center that provides you with this analytics, demographics, and the ability to run campaigns, all hosted inside a single, secure, trusted source of acquisition for your customers. So when customers will go or users go to a store, they'll see things like the product description page here. The product description page here is thinking about, it has a video on top of it. You can think about that as a trailer for your app so that people can see them and access them and work with them. In the telemetry area, you can get rich telemetry about where is things being acquired. So you saw a spike there that showed me where the UWP toolkit, we released a new version, we had a big spike in acquisition. I can go in, I can see where did they come from. I can look and see how people are using my app, where are they using it. And I can even get information about the quality of the application. How's it working? Is it running correctly? Is it not running correctly? I can get reports of failures. So now I can go in and start to drill in and say, I can see that this type of error is occurring at this location, and I can get access to that and understand it and fix it in my next version. So all of those things bundled together to give you a great ability to use the universal Windows platform to build awesome PC applications. To find out more about the Fluent design system, I'd like you to go to fluent.microsoft.com. For more information about the UWP Community Toolkit and to start acquiring those toolkit pieces, if you go to aka.ms/UWP Community Toolkit. All of our Build Tour content, as everyone has shown today, is at aka.ms/Build Tour. And we'd love to hear what you had to think about not only my session here, which you would be tweeting about at MS Build Tour, hashtag MS Build Tour, saying that it was awesome, but also about the whole day and what you've learned from it and what we can do better. We'd love to hear that stuff. And so with that, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to learn about PC apps for UWP. And we'll hand over to our next set of presenters.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vaughn Knight. I'm the Technical Evangelist Lead at Microsoft here in Australia. And when you think about UWP and natural interaction and the things that are coming with the UWP platform, our team gets to work with developers that are doing this at the very cutting edge. And I'm joined here on stage with James Oller from the Museum of Applied Art and Science. And I'll let James introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing.
So I'm the Digital Learning Manager at MAS, and that's the Powerhouse Museum for those who don't know. And there I have the great privilege of working with up to 70,000 students a year. And I've got to do things like build Mars research rovers, work on custom bespoke VR programs, and hardware such as the Thinker Shield that you can see up there. But also, so we can get the next slide, in my own time, I also like to make games. And so I've shipped games on pretty much every platform. I've shipped on all the mobile platforms, and I've shipped on Steam for Vive. And so what I've come here today to talk to you about is actually, I've done a lot of things at the moment with the Surface Dial. And I got a Surface Studio, and I was so excited by the dial that I felt like I just needed to start making some things. So I might show you a couple of demos of some of the things that I've made. So the first thing that I made was this Lemmings style game where you had a little character that walked up and then you could spin each of the worlds with your surface dial and you could select the different ones. Initially I tried to make it so that you could control everything from the dial, but when I had user testing I felt that people just wanted to touch the screen and be able to spin each of the different worlds. But then I wanted to try and unlock more of the features and I thought, so I've been doing this with Unity and I needed to find an easy way in so that I could get all of the UWP features without having to do too much work and just focus on the creativity. So I started searching online and I found somebody who had made a GitHub and it actually turned out to be Vaughn.
Yeah, and so what I did was I was working with the surface style in Unity myself and I thought, well, the code that I've got I probably might open up and make just a library on GitHub for people to use. And 2 days after I did that, I got an email from James, who I was meeting the next day, who'd stumbled it on GitHub. It took him about 2 hours to find it, and spent him 4 hours for him to confirm that it was actually me, because he was meeting with me the next day. So then he said, I've got some bugs, I'll let you know about them tomorrow. So do you want to show us what else you've been doing with the dial?
So once I was able to start getting more functionality into it, I looked at trying to make a game that was very specific to it. And so what I started doing was looking at how the UIs might work. And so what I did is I created this circular UI because I felt like the circular UI, although it wasn't attached to the dial, really focused on the dial. And it allowed me to change between the modes for the robot. And so, for example, I can walk around with this robot. And I can see back there that there's a cannon, so I don't want to actually go over there. And so I thought about how can I use the dial to make some extra ways to interact with the game. So I started thinking about the on-screen interactions that I could do.
Yeah, and so one of the things with the dial, which, while the dial will work with every laptop in terms of not on the screen, when you've got a Surface Studio or a new Surface Pro, you can actually interact with it on the screen, and that creates a whole new sort of interaction which feels a lot more natural. And the purpose of the dial is also that you have it in your non-dominant hand, and so you might be using your other hand with a mouse or touch or with pen. So you don't want to show us what you've been doing there?
So you can see if I get the dial and put it onto the screen, it gives this red aura around it. But if I put it over the top of a robot, it turns blue. And if I click on this dial, you'll see that the robot, let's go back into the app. The robot will go into the dial. And so now what I'm going to try and do is try to get over the top of the wall. So I'm going to move the dial up and go over the top of the wall and click again, and you'll see that my robot is now above the wall.
Fantastic. And so where is the robot going at that point in time? Is it going into the dial, or what are you doing there?
So it's being stored inside the dial. What we might show is a little bit of the code behind how it actually works. And so let's look at this. When you get Vaughn's from GitHub, you'll be able to get some basic controls for the dial. So you can see up on this side over here, up here, you can see that you can have 3 different controls. You have a control where you can change the precision, or you can change the logo, or the name that's actually on the dial. But then you might want to be able to go a little bit deeper, and you might want to actually write some code. So this is Unity here, but then you might want to go into Visual Studio, for example, and see the different events that you call. And so all what's happening here is you subscribe to an event, and each of these events does different things. So here you can see 3 different events. The top event is just when this dial is on the screen. So that's when I wanted to put the UI, and you saw the red circle go around it. And then I also wanted to keep track of when you were sliding the dial around the screen, so I could update where that UI was. And then finally, I will go to the end, and I wanted to also know when I pulled the dial off so that I could change it back to the previous functionality.
Awesome. And I guess that's the thing with Surface-style development. It's quite simple because it's just events, on screen, off screen, whether it's being scrolled or not, setting the precision on when you get those events out of the dial. So I guess, if people sort of want to find out more, if they want to work with it, make sure that you are...
If we head back to our slide, we should have one more. Wrong one. We have 2 of them up here. If you go to aka.ms/Unity dial, you can find Vaughn's GitHub. And also, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, I'm always happy to talk to anyone.
Yeah, so thank you very much, everybody. And we'll be now cutting over to afternoon tea.